The news broke not with a whisper, but with a seismic shock that ripped through the music world. It started with a single, chilling headline from a local news affiliate that was quickly picked up by national outlets. A badly decomposed body had been discovered in the trunk of an impounded Tesla. The vehicle, left for weeks in a dusty Southern California lot, was registered to David Burke, known to millions as the artist D4vd. The initial shock was soon followed by a grim identification. The victim was 14-year-old Isabella Mendoza, a girl from Riverside County whose face had been circulating on local missing person flyers for nearly 3 months. Those flyers, once passed around with desperate hope, were now viewed with unbearable sadness. They showed a smiling teenager, full of life, with a future that had been stolen. The paper listed her height, her weight, and the last clothes she was seen wearing, a simple plea from a terrified family to bring their daughter home. Now, that plea was a memorial. As the story exploded online, D4vd's camp scrambled to do damage control. A spokesperson released a carefully worded statement, insisting the singer was still out on tour, but was fully cooperating with the authorities. It was a textbook PR move, designed to create distance and project an image of calm compliance. But it did little to stem the tide of suspicion. The public didn't see cooperation. They saw an artist halfway across the world while his name was being irrevocably tied to a homicide investigation. Then, the first domino fell. News surfaced that D4vd had abruptly canceled his upcoming show in Seattle. Fans were confused, but many assumed it was a temporary measure. They were wrong. Just days later, the entire My Pedal World Tour was officially canceled, a multi-million-dollar international endeavor, scrapped in an instant. Source: Pitchfork, D4vd cancels. World Tour amidst ongoing investigation, September 21, 2025. For an artist at the zenith of his fame, this was more than a logistical nightmare. It was a public confession of crisis. Canceling a single show is a problem. Canceling a world tour is a career implosion. Whether it was an act of panic or a genuine attempt to handle the situation, the perception was damning. The message it sent was clear. This was not some distant problem he could manage from the road. The horror had followed him home, and in his attempt to run from the fire, he had inadvertently fanned the flames, turning a cloud of suspicion into a raging inferno of public condemnation. Digital ghosts. As D4vd's public-facing world crumbled, his private one was being exhumed. The internet, the very tool that had launched his career, became an archive of his potential crimes. In the dark corners of Discord servers he once frequented, digital ghosts began to emerge in the form of damning screenshots, leaked by anonymous users and spreading like wildfire. These weren't just rumors, they were conversations, time-stamped and preserved, that painted a deeply disturbing picture of his relationship with Isabella Mendoza. The first set of logs revealed an unsettling level of familiarity. In a chat from late 2024, D4vd is seen tagging Isabella directly, asking, "@Izzy, where you at?" She responds moments later with an enthusiastic, "Right here, your number one is reporting for duty." On its own, the exchange could be dismissed as an artist interacting with a fan, but in the context of what was to come, it felt like the first thread in a sinister web. Why was a global superstar singling out one specific 14-year-old fan in a server with thousands of members? The next leak removed all ambiguity. In a conversation between two other members of the server from March of 2025, one asks if D4vd has a girlfriend. The response is casual and chilling. "Pretty sure he's dating that girl Izzy Arnien." At the time of this exchange, D4vd was 18 years old. Isabella was 14. This single message reframed the narrative from one of tragedy to one of predation. Even if he had no involvement in her death, this screenshot alone suggested a deeply inappropriate and illegal relationship was not only happening, but was an open secret among his inner circle. But the most stomach-turning revelation was yet to come. A screenshot surfaced from August 2025, a time when Isabella was officially a missing person and her family was pleading for her return. In the chat, D4vd tags everyone, complaining about a song crisis. A user by the name of Ponsalo replies with a horrific attempt at a joke. "Drop the one with the missing girl Isabella Mendoza." To see her name, her status as a missing child, used as a punchline in a server moderated by D4vd himself was horrifying. He was present. He saw the message. The casual cruelty of the exchange suggested that to his online community, Isabella's disappearance was not a tragedy, but just another piece of server lore. These digital footprints were no longer just whispers. They were a roadmap, pointing to a dark and manipulative reality hidden just beneath the surface of his fame. With the digital trail on Discord exposed, the floodgates opened on other platforms. The conversation shifted to anonymous forums like Reddit, where people, often shielded by usernames, began sharing stories that added terrifying new layers to the case. While these accounts were unverified, they weren't random. They were specific, consistent, and painted a chilling portrait of a pattern of predatory behavior that allegedly began long before Isabella Mendoza's disappearance. One of the most shared threads came from the r/Inland Empire subreddit, hosted by a user named SoCalWatcher. watcher. The user claimed to be the aunt of one of Isabella's close friends. She wrote, "I'm terrified this is about Izzy. My niece told me she became obsessed with him after he did a small meet and greet in Corona last year. Suddenly, she was always on her phone, talking about him, saying he was going to help her with music." The post continued, alleging that Isabella ran away from home shortly after this, and that her parents had found messages from a much older man they suspected was D4d. The user concluded with a line that resonated with thousands. "We all thought it was a teenage crush. We never thought it could end like this." This post brought the allegations out of the abstract and grounded them in the reality of Isabella's own community. Another explosive post appeared on a music industry gossip forum from a throwaway account named Industry Throwaway 7. This user claimed to be a former runner for a management company associated with D4vd's label. They alleged that it was an open secret, that D4d had a fixation on his younger fans, and that his team was constantly engaged in proactive damage control. The post described an incident where D4vd's manager allegedly had to pay off a group of high schoolers with cash in a parking lot to delete a video of him with an underage girl at a party. "It isn't speculation," the user insisted. "It was his brand. His team enabled it because he was making them money. Now, a girl is dead." Taken individually, these posts could be dismissed as libel from anonymous trolls, but together they formed a disturbing mosaic. The details aligned: the focus on young girls from the Inland Empire, the manipulation, the use of money and influence to ensure silence. These whispers from the web were becoming a roar. They suggested that Isabella Mendoza's tragic end wasn't an isolated incident, but the horrifying conclusion to a long-running and carefully concealed pattern of abuse. In the wake of a tragedy, we often look back at an artist's work, searching for clues we might have missed. For D4d, this retrospective analysis turned his most celebrated song into what many now see as a confession note. Romantic Homicide, the track that made him a star, was being dissected line by line, its teenage angst reinterpreted as a cold, premeditated narrative. The lyrics, once seen as metaphorical, now felt chillingly literal. Lines like, "In the back of my mind, I killed you, and I didn't even regret it," were no longer poetic hyperbole. They sounded like a statement of fact. The context made it infinitely worse. Internet sleuths quickly discovered a horrifying coincidence. The song was officially released on July 9, 2022, Isabella Mendoza's 11th birthday. While likely a coincidence given the timeline, in the court of public opinion, it felt like a sick, deliberate omen. The song that millions streamed as a breakup anthem was now being viewed as a blueprint for a real-life tragedy, forever tainting his biggest success. The evidence, however, was not just lyrical, it was visual and undeniable. A screenshot, originally posted months ago to a friend's private story, began to circulate, showing D4vd on a late-night video call with Isabella. There he was, a grown man and a global star, in direct private conversation with a 14-year-old fan. This image proved that their connection wasn't just limited to public Discord chats. It was personal and sustained, raising serious questions about the nature of their relationship that no PR statement could answer. What legitimate reason did a famous musician have for being on a private call with a middle schooler at 3 a.m.? Then came the most incendiary leak of all, a screenshot of a text message exchange, allegedly from Isabella's phone. In the texts, she appears to be confiding in a friend about an intimate physical encounter, explicitly naming David. While the authenticity of this screenshot remains unconfirmed and could easily be fabricated, its impact was nuclear. It was shared millions of times, and for many, it was the final nail in the coffin. Real or not, it fit the predatory pattern that the Discord and Reddit threads had already established. The line between D4vd, the artist, and David Burke, the suspect, had been completely erased. His art, his private calls, and his alleged texts had merged into a single, horrifying narrative.